You know, you've made it in Washington when you have a chief of staff. Now the same is being said of corporate America. NBC's Ron Mott finding out more about the new power position in the boardroom. Ron.
Hey there, Mark. Good Monday morning to you. We spent a day recently at insurance giant Aflac to see how his chief of staff keeps the company president charging full speed ahead. At Aflac headquarters in South Georgia, Angela Kate stays on the move almost as much as her boss.
Thank you.
President and COO Paul Amos. For 3 years as chief of staff,
okay, we'll do it.
She's been a steady, familiar presence by his side, whether on Wall Street
is focused too long,
or the boardroom, a conduit to senior leadership that gives Amos an occasional breather in the daily grind.
I'm now able to take a much broader depth of issues, but at the same time, I can then offload on specific issues, really focus my time in, and know that there's an additional person filtering all of the issues.
It's a position with high-level decision-making authority, something the 35-year-old Kate says she knew on day one she'd have to earn over time.
I can't come in there and act as Paul's proxy out of the gate. I learned, and I would just take more and more, and I offered myself as a resource to his team members and try to build working relationships. That's been the key to my success as much as my relationship with Paul.
A relationship to which she brings certain skills and traits, they both say.
Humility, communication, trustworthiness.
Helping keep Aflac's front office quacking happily like a duck. Now, among the companies that have added the chief of staff position, Goldman Sachs, AOL, and ING. Simon?
Thank you very much for that. So does corporate America need another layer of management? Dr. Doug Hirschhorn, peak performance coach and author of 8 Ways to Great, thinks this will hold senior level executives more accountable and improve communication. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, CNBC contributor and associate dean from the Yale School of Management, thinks this is a catalyst for power hoarding. What do you mean by that, sir?
Well, there's a stranglehold. You have people who are often power craven that get in this filtering role. This happens to be a parallel position which is drawn from government. This is a position created in 1946 and retitled for the White House. I don't see a lot of times we see corporate America looking to public sector, looking to government, looking to the White House for models of great leadership. If you consider whether or not it was Dick Cheney to Don Rumsfeld to Don Regan to Leo Panetta, this has been the most perilous, or Rahm Emanuel today, the most difficult, the most political, and the most controversial of all public positions. Who would ever want to emulate this?
Doug, that's a powerful argument.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's kind of a dated argument because the concept here is they're not part of management. They're a facilitator. They're essentially like the uncle of the organization. They don't make the rules. They just basically help facilitate vertical communication and make sure that the needs and what's going on the senior manager level is getting communicated up to the CEO.
This actually is not a dated argument. The dated argument, if you will forgive me, Dr. Hirschhorn, is that this was a position that existed for decades in corporate America in a much lesser realm when we had lots of bureaucratic bloat. It was an assistant 2 position that, frankly, we used to send generations of MBAs from campus off to do this kind of a job. It used to be done by the secretary, a private secretary at the White House. This is a secretarial job. When it gets elevated into being the role of this basically the caregiver, the bodyguard, the filter of information, there's hardly a job that's more important for the CEO than to make their own choices for access to information. I can give you a very long list of companies, Digital Equipment to name one, that died in part because of the filtering, that their CEOs didn't get the direct information because you had people in there. If you want somebody to protect the boss, go for a food taster, go for a bodyguard, go for a chauffeur if you want. But don't block the CEO from hearing from the general counsel, from the CFO, from the head of marketing. Who is he filtering? Who is he protecting?
You know, Dr. Doug, seriously, the professor makes an excellent point. It could easily become a bottleneck.
That it could easily become, and I point out that it's the person that you have in place. If they're an egomaniac, if they're frustrated or annoyed, or they're a power monger, you're going to have those problems. But to think about the person as not a facilitator in the communication of the organization, I think is a mistake in what's going on here. And you have to look at these people that are in these places. There's a bandwidth issue. The CEO of Aflac cannot possibly see and know what's going on at all times in the organization, and everyone has political motives somewhere in the business, and he's got to have that one person, a trusted confidant, who is not viewed as just his person, but a representative of the business, and whose one priority is to better the business.
You know, you look at CEOs like the CEOs who've run UPS, Colgate-Palmolive, some of our best performing firms. a lot of them even pick up the telephone themselves. And it used to be, and Mark, I'm sure you at least will remember this, there were times where you wake up early in the morning, you'd call the CEO's office, you'd probably get her or him to answer, generally him, to answer directly. Now, maybe they can't do that anymore, but they certainly can pick their own choices of information. Hey, this is who they delegate to, who they get information from. That's the job. If they're too busy for this job, let them retire to the golf course and let somebody else take the job.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you used to answer your own phone.
Yes, you don't call me as often.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Appreciate hearing from both of you on the subject.